Okay. Oh, and Jerome.
Okay, well, let's see, shall we do roll call? Make it official?
Sounds
Sure.
good.
Okay, Linnea Madison, well, maybe try to go around the lake clockwise. Linnea Madison on Lake Park Drive. This is a test.
Rusty Weaver, Northwest.
Jody
Dana
Keys,
Day.
Daisy Lane.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Daisy Lane. I jumped again.
That's okay.
Dana Day, Lark Street.
Would I be next then?
Yep.
I think so.
I was
Yeah.
like, Carissa Parvin from Barton's Lake Condos.
Then we have a Troy Patience.
I'm also from Barnes Lake Park Condos.
Okay. I am Dave Congeezer from the city of Tumwater, Water Resources Specialist.
And Patrick Soderberg, also from the city of Tumwater, Program Manager.
And then we have Jerome from the Jolt News.
Oh,
No introduction needed.
Okay, that's everybody. Have we all had a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody have any changes or additions?
Not me.
Mm-mm.
Okay, and then moving on to public comment.
This would be your time, Jerome, if you want to speak up.
No, thanks. I don't have any comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and do we have any member comments tonight?
Nope.
Okay, well then I think we can delve into the reason we're here tonight, which is to talk about the lake management and the proposal from Aquatechnics.
So Dave, do you want to scroll? Do you have any of that, anything to see on that one? So it's my understanding what we're trying to do is just get, you guys wanted some time to think about the application or treatment that they are proposing. And, you know, every 3 years is what Doug had previously kind of 3 to 4 year window for doing fluoridone over the contact herbicides. You guys have been doing contact herbicides for at least the last couple years.
Yeah.
And Scott agreed with Doug that a full lake treatment for fluoridone would be appropriate. And that is a significant increase in cost to the LMD. And so I think you guys wanted to take a little bit of time and think about it. And so I think we have a vote in front of us tonight of whether or not you guys want to go with the fluoridone treatment, which would include coming back and doing some spot treatment on the lilies, because the fluoridone will just be a application to deal with the bladder wart. So the other option would be to go with the contact herbicides. You know, the problem that I think Doug and Scott both are aware of is because bladder wart moves around in the lake. If you, it's kind of tough to get full control or, you know, keep the population down unless you know, target the entire lake as opposed to where the plants are. And then when they break off or the seeds move, because they do float, that you don't get as good a control. So significant difference in price. I think did anybody have any questions or want about the different herbicide choices or anything like that?
Well, so if we do this, not so much on that, just on the financing.
Mhm.
Sure.
It basically will mostly wipe out our balance.
Right. And that was the intent. It was to go and basically have a systematic billing process or fee assessment so that you
Um,
could build up a reserve for
Right,
this type of treatment.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I understand that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. To me,
But yes, absolutely, it will deplete your all the bank that you guys have stored up.
yeah.
And so Patrick, if we did the fluoridone treatment, then we wouldn't do any contact treatment. It would just,
Well,
for
you still
2025, all we, oh, sorry, go ahead.
so the contact treatment would also be for the bladderwort. So there always will be a separate spraying for
I see.
the water lilies. So whether you go with contact or
Okay.
with the fluoridone, you're still going to have to do the separate treatment for the lily control, which
I-
is they spray the top.
Okay,
Yeah.
so every year, we would plan that we're going to do some kind of contact treatment, correct?
Contact treatment. See, contact treatment doesn't mean that you're spraying it on, like contacting the plant itself. A contact herbicide kills on contact, where fluoridone is a systemic, and what it does
Systemic.
is it gets into the circulatory system of the plant, and it kills the root system. It kills everything. So when you spray the top of a water lily, you still are using a systemic. You're still using one that cycles
Oh.
through, and that's what brings the mats up, is because you're killing the whole root system as well. So even though those particular herbicides need to be sprayed on the physical portion of the plant, it's not a contact herbicide.
And Patrick, remind me.
Okay, now,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to quickly ask, was Dicot one of the chemicals that was a little extensive or not?
Extensive or
Like-
expensive?
Well, expensive, extreme, one of the.
Diquat and Endothol are both contact herbicides. They're both much lower in cost.
and I remember that Doug told us when we did fluoridone that it would be 2 treatments. So is there the full lake and then there's the spot treatment that comes
Yeah, so
later?
so fluoridone is kind of interesting in that you have to have the water concentration up at a certain level for like 30 days or more.
Yeah.
So they do the initial application and it kind of, and that's why it's better to do large portions of a lake, because it's easier to keep that concentration up as opposed to a narrow strip, which it would dilute out into the sides. So they do an initial application. They get that water concentration up about 4 parts per billion or something. And then they do have to come back after 2 or 3 weeks and put a little bit more in just to maintain that concentration in the water column. So that's what they mean by two applications.
Is that 2 applications of the fluoridone that is calculated in the option B, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So fluoridone, the application, basically one application is as many applications as it takes to keep that concentration up. Some lakes you have to do 3 applications to keep it up. So it just depends on how big your water body is, how much mixing it has. You guys don't have like a stream going through it or a big outlet. So it's pretty easy to control that shallow lake at a specific concentration. So I believe he said he just needs to do it twice.
So option A and option B. Option B is really option A plus the fluoridone, right?
Except you're substituting fluoridone for endothol.
Okay, yeah. And And financially, I guess with our lake fee increases, we will recover some of our we'll recover in the years that we don't do this, we'll recover some of that so as to be ready for when we need to do it again. The money.
That's correct, because you'd go back to the lesser expensive contact herbicide and
Yeah.
but the rates, the fee assessments will continue to, I believe it's a 5% increase or something like that
Mhm.
each year.
Yeah.
So your growth will start back up again next year.
Great.
And plus this also has the IVAMP in it. So the development of this integrated aquatic vegetation management plan. So that's a once in every 10 years cost this year as well. So you're kind of getting two heavy hitters in the same year.
I think I can speak for most of us and say it's just a little bit of a shock to think about spending our entire balance and running it down to $3,700 in our bank account. But that's why we're here, is to spend the money that our neighbors have contributed. So once I kind of thought about it a little better, I didn't feel so bad, but I had a little bit of sticker shock myself.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if you want to think of it from a planning standpoint, you've accepted the fees, over time, and you've planned it out perfectly so that when you have this expensive year for these two things that, basically you've been preparing for, it covers it all. You don't have to change your fee assessments, but yes, I agree. It's like, now you don't have any reserve, but then again, you just did all the expensive stuff.
And
Yeah.
there's no need to out of like a reserve. Like this is all of our expenses for this year. Nothing unexpected. We'd have to be like, oh gosh, we are so short of, we didn't calculate that in.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, the only other thing would be, if we do any modification of the boat ramp, but that should be very inexpensive.
The IVAMP is a guesstimate based on years prior, so that could fluctuate higher. Scott has mentioned that Aquatechnics does that type of work as well, so I don't know if there's some cost savings if they were to do that that IVAMP for the lake management district. Or if we farm that out to a different consultant, if there would be there wouldn't be that cost savings of just the efficiency of having Aquatechnics do it. So there's something to consider there. 15,000 for that type of work is pretty light, to be honest.
Well, plus we can word it as an update, go
Yeah.
through the document and see, how much are we truly changing versus, it's not an initial plan. So maybe having it as an update will reduce that cost.
Yeah. So there could be some fluctuation with that.
I
Okay.
feel sufficiently educated to vote.
I have just one question before we go ahead. When on the two budget options, when it says assessments, that's our assessments, that's what we're expecting for 2025.
That is correct.
Okay. And then our expectation is that goes up 5% every year.
Right.
Correct? Good.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure that I had that, because I had the same thing when Linnea said that about, gosh, we're going to use everything practically. Looking ahead, and so would I be right in thinking that for the years we're not doing Floridone, we're going
Right.
to be spending something more along the lines of option A?
Correct.
Okay. And then, so that right now, that would have been 14.4. Our assessments would easily cover that, and we would start to build something, but I don't know, nowhere close to covering that Floridone. Do you think? I mean, in 3 years?
Well, plus we won't have the IVAMP for the next 10, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Correct.
You'll have the IVAMP yearly?
Oh
No,
gosh.
no,
10
every
years.
10,
Oh,
every 10
each
years.
10 years. Yeah, oh, okay. That's what I thought.
Okay, but it looks like this pencils out so that we're not going to be having a year when we can't afford to I mean, we're building our reserve, we're going
Yeah.
towards the we have a plan and it looks like we can cover it. Okay, I'm ready.
Right.
Thanks.
You know, ultimately, let's say you're not comfortable spending down and having such a small reserve, then you would basically saying, okay, we would go with option A.
Yeah.
So what would be the worst case scenario with option A? So now you have your applicator saying, you know, when you don't do a full lake application, your bladder wart problem can get big enough to where it's harder to control.
Mhm.
And so that's basically, you know, what you're weighing. And whenever you're talking about control, you know, especially in an aquatic system, you know, I can't tell you what the risk is, you know, how much worse the problem could be if you wait 1 year. I
Mhm.
mean, I can't answer that, and I don't think Scott could either. You know, I think they make what they think is a reasonable prediction, you know, based on what they've seen.
I'd
And-
like to make a motion.
I have a question first. Do you know when they plan on doing that? Once we approve it?
Didn't he say, Dave, that Floridone would be earlier in the season?
Yeah, now that, you know, they're better aware of the, you know, Barnes Lake situation with the low water and stuff. I think they wanted to prioritize getting out during the earlier in the season in June or maybe even early July, as opposed to, you know, I don't think he got out till late August last year, but, you know, especially if they need to bump it, so they might need to come out twice. The earlier the better.
Yeah.
You know, normally we do have to wait for that water temperature to reach about 63 to 65 degrees before we
Ah.
get plant emergence.
Ah.
In the past, that's usually been occurring in May. So May to June. So it could time out right where we could, you know, potentially be effective with that plant emergence. And I know that he was, you know, Scott was fairly wide open with his schedule at this point, but it's going to probably fill in pretty quick here as we approach spring.
Well,
So-
doesn't it also depend on whether they can launch the boat?
Yes, so we've got kind of a workaround for now to get the boat in. I think we can do a temporary ramp. The permits for the boat ramp just went in this week. So that's gonna take a little bit of time depending on their findings and whatnot. Don't know how long, but yeah, there is a temporary workaround for getting the boat in. So he can get the airboat in. I think that was one of the biggest limiting factors last year was not having that airboat available to them to do a complete you know, treatment like he probably normally would.
Well, and also, Dave, one of the big differences, the contact herbicides that they had done the last couple years, ecology limits when you can put those in. You have to wait until July before they
Oh.
can be applied, where Floridone does not have that same restriction. So the application window can be much earlier.
Yeah, because I mean, just in terms of the lake level, I mean, the lake level is still not the lake is not full. It's still got another 18 inches maybe to go, which this is late for it to be not full.
Right.
So the sooner, well, we can't do the water temperature, can't we? We got to have the water temperature, but yeah. Just so that if we spend that money, we spend it at, so we get its max bang for the buck. Can I make a motion? Anybody hear me?
Yeah. We're good. Does anybody else have questions or comments or concerns?
I think I'm good for whoever wants to make the motion.
I
Okay,
make a motion that we accept option B.
I
and
second.
all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? Okay, I think we've approved option B.
Yay.
And so Patrick, will you let Aquatechnics know at the first opportunity so we can get
Yes.
on their calendar?
Yeah, we'll Dave and I will make sure we get an email out first thing tomorrow. Let them know that.
Okay, and the other consolation I found in all of this is I remember Doug Dorling telling us that we're going to need to do Floridone in the near future and
Right.
preparing us that it will be very expensive.
Mhm.
That was probably maybe even the last meeting that Doug had with us. I remember he was giving us a little heads up. So here we are.
Well, I remember when we talked about it, at first, we were talking about alternate years, and that was just too expensive, so we said
Mhm.
3, to stretch
Yeah.
it a little, and that's where we are now. So, yeah.
Mhm.
It's time.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, we
Okay.
kind of simultaneously went through the budget. So I don't know if you want to show the budget again.
Mhm.
I think
No,
we stared at it long enough.
Good.
Right?
We're still trying to work out some kinks in the budget now that this transition from Dan to Patrick's going on. I think there's still some handoffs that need to be smoothed out a little bit. So the budget numbers are we're still trying to figure out how to make that work. But I think we're starting to get a better handle on it, and hopefully that'll reflect in
Is
future.
Dan's still managing your budget?
oh, okay.
So the same person is still managing your budget, and then he'll just send us a copy of it. And so that's why when we see it, it's almost for the first time.
Okay.
Almost.
So we have one more agenda item on this that we wanted to touch on really quick because it's a little bit time sensitive, and that's the reallocation of duties. Based on current workloads at the city, it's looking like I'm not going to be able to do the recording for the Barnes Lake Management District. I'll still be able to be involved with some of the volunteer work and water quality monitoring and stuff like that, but trying to streamline some of my duties to reallocate to some of the more regulatory requirements that are put on my position. So Patrick, did you have anything to kind of help say about something like that?
So what I was doing is as I was going through just all of the documents that Barnes Lake committee has, I ran across the bylaws, and one of the things that it says in the bylaws is the meeting minutes are to be taken by the actual committee members, and that person who does that is supposed to be voted on by the committee.
Mm.
And so I know I made a comment at our last meeting. There was like 5 people taking notes, but we've always posted the minutes, and then have you review them, and then we finalize them. But it's actually a section of the roles of the committee itself.
Oh.
So I don't know if you guys want to wait until the next board meeting that we have, so that you have more membership here in case people want to, not everybody likes to be volunteered and then voted on and they find out that that's what they do.
I was going to
I don't
nominate
know, I've
Kathy
seen that
Peterson
happen before.
Yes, and
Yeah.
or Alani.
or Leilani.
That's funny. Yeah.
So we just wanted you guys to know that that's actually in the bylaws, and so if you guys want to have that as one of the things that we do at maybe the front end of our next meeting, so that there's better representation and maybe people who actually want to volunteer to do it, we can take that up at that time. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, I've been surprised I mean, it's always just been this way but I've been surprised that it's the city that acts as a secretary. And, yeah, I've never been in a group that did it that way, but, yeah.
We appreciate all the work you guys have done
Yes,
over the
we do.
years.
Yes.
We really do.
It's,
And we're not going away. We're not letting Dave quit or anything like that.
Okay, okay, good.
It's just going through the YouTube tapes and listening to the recordings and taking all the minutes is taxing after a while, where it really just needs to be recorded, by somebody during the meeting. And then you guys can confer together, and get that all, get it reviewed and then approved at the beginning of the next meeting. So I think it might even help you guys get the notes quicker.
yeah. But I see Linnea's name on it. Is Linnea with us?
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
here.
Oh, hi. Not Linnea. Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. I see you're on twice. Okay, never mind.
Oh,
Anyway, you're on phone, right?
yes.
Ah, that's it. And Carissa, you're on phone?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. That's why your display looks different. Okay. All right.
Well, we appreciate the heads up on that.
Yes.
Hopefully somebody will want to take over that significant responsibility.
Dave, didn't you tell us at some meeting that the requirements for the minutes had changed, or hasn't it become that they don't need to be as extensive?
Yeah, right. So, just trying to really capture some of the main conversation, ideas and concepts, and then any major decision that's really taken place. There's AI will actually record meetings for you, but it's to the, down to the letter. So it's a little bit much for what we're trying to accomplish. So there is that option too, but I don't recommend it. But yeah, it's really kind of just come down to some of the major thoughts of the conversation, and then any major decisions that are being made.
Yeah, the AI, it would get all of our extraneous comments on it, right?
Well,
I've
yes, it
tried it
does.
once, and it's kind of weird.
Let's just enjoy those without them being recorded.
That's right.
Anyway, so are we done?
I don't think we had any other agenda items, did we, Dave?
No.
I got important things to do.
Okay,
so
so
we-
when is our next meeting?
I think April.
April 9th.
Okay.
April 9th.
That's coming up.
See, the temperature's supposed to hit 60 this next week.
Yeah, I just hope that I freezing again and then delay everything from blooming.
Yeah, it's gonna be a false spring.
It is what it is.
Well, hopefully it'll fill your lake up.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
that would
what
be
it
good. All right, so we're all done, and we will be back together mostly in person, hopefully on April 9th.